I'm Brandon Campbell, the Director of Small Business and Inclusion with the Little Rock Regional Chamber, and you're watching Our Story. Now today, I have the pleasure of having on Our Story Mrs. Sherece West-Scantlebury, who is the President and CEO of the Rockefeller Foundation. Ms. Sherece, thank you very much for having me on here today.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, you're very welcome, and the pleasure is all ours. And so my question to you is that, you've been a great leader in our community. And so what led you to going into the philanthropy nonprofit route and raising the bar and then rising to becoming the president and CEO of the Rockefeller Foundation?
Well, one, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate the compliment of our work here at the foundation. So I am from Baltimore, Maryland, and I was born and raised in the Murphy Homes public housing development there. And ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to know what is necessary, or what would it take for this community to transform from the way that it is to being a positive place for kids and families to live. That question always was one that I pursued. Just seeing a good deal of the violence and the quality of the housing there, but the people were just wanting better for their kids, wanting better for themselves, wanting better for their children, wanting better for their families. Just a hard time knowing how to get there. And so that question has just always been a question I've had just since growing up there. And so I've just pursued it in my education and also in my career. So that's kind of how I got here to doing nonprofit work. It's in my DNA. I never imagined myself doing for-profit. In fact, I still, every now and again, I'm like, oh, I could be a bank manager, I could be a stockbroker, I could be, I could be whatever I want to be. I'm sure I can, but even the thought of that doesn't do anything for my heart. And so that's why I say it's in my DNA, because I can't imagine doing anything but public service or living a life of service. And in terms of the question around philanthropy, I didn't know philanthropy from anything else. I actually stumbled upon philanthropy, answered an ad in the paper back when there were ads in the paper, and saw a job at the Annie Casey Foundation, and it was really the description of the job that drew me, that I was able to work in housing policy, which is where I kind of started my career as a housing advocate in housing policy, housing research. Because again, for me, housing, like, why are people housed the way that they are? Why? I didn't realize or understand segregation. I didn't understand any of that when I was 13, 11, 2 years old growing up. But once I understood the relationship between housing and community building overall, then the Annie Casey Foundation's job description was one that married my background and work in housing advocacy with being able to do it on a broader scale nationally, and the whole systems that surround housing, education, economic development, food, health, all of that work together to build a community and not just housing. So so that was my first job my second job in philanthropy was at the Annie Casey Foundation. My first was actually as an intern at the Ford Foundation. And I didn't even know what philanthropy was, much less the Ford Foundation was. But again, I applied for the job, not so much applied to philanthropy. What appealed to me was the work that I was able to do versus the organization. But I was blessed that it was a prestigious organization to start with.
Now, it takes a lot of different skills to become the president and CEO of any major organization or corporation. What would you say is the major skill that you've been equipped with that has led to your continued success in management?
So I want to say that I never started out to be president. Never desired it, never wanted. I didn't want to be president of the book club, the garden club, SGA. It was like, no, nothing. But God is good, and this is where I ascended to. So one of the things I would say is the major skill. I don't know if it's a skill, I would say part of the journey is to do some sort of self-actualization. Is this the kind of leadership that you truly want and aspire to? Because you can still be a leader and be a leader in your field and not necessarily be the CEO or the ED. So one would be self-actualization, like actually knowing who you are as a leader and what is your leadership style? How do you want to show up as a leader? Do you want to be a leader? You really have to ask yourself those types of questions, because when you get to this level, the level of scrutiny that's upon you, the level of responsibility that's upon you, the required strategic thinking and planning and forecasting, working with different types of people, both internally, the partnerships and relationships you have to build externally. Like I say, this isn't for the faint at heart. And knowing your leadership style and how you want to show up and what's important to you is someplace that we often don't start. It seems as though we become leaders because we get promoted, or you're making career moves, and that career move leads you to leadership, an ED or vice president or high-level senior position, which I think is fine and absolutely correct. But I've also seen folk not do well or actually be even miserable once they get there. And much of it is because you can take the steps to get there, but again, if your heart isn't aligned with those steps, then folk don't do so well. Now, you may still do well, like, get good reviews or good outcomes, but, heart disease, stress, marital problems, there's a whole lot that comes with this level of responsibility. And if you're not secure in who you are as a leader and in this kind of a role, rarely does anyone come up and say good job, like you, probably the first person in ages that says you did a great job. Now, I want to say that I don't want to turn anybody off who's listening or watching either, because we did a survey some years ago with young people, asking them would they aspire to be nonprofit leaders, and a good majority of them, I used to know the statistic, it's the Young Nonprofit Leaders, Young YNPN, Young Nonprofit Professionals Network of Little Rock, did a survey. And in that survey, a majority of the respondents said they did not want a leadership role because, they see leaders like you and I who stay late, come in early, don't spend as much time with our families, not taking vacation. In fact, I had to give back some vacation days last year. So they see that and they're like, I don't want that. I don't want any parts of that. I want to say, okay, please, yes you do, right? Like this can work for you. If leadership is what you aspire to, please do it, because we need ethical leaders, committed leaders, capable leaders, smart leaders, innovative leaders, future thinking leaders. Like, we need that in the nonprofit field. So I don't want to discourage anybody. It is hard work, but I don't want to say that in a way that discourages anybody from aspiring to it.
And we need you here in the Little Rock region. It's been a pleasure having you, and thanking you for all that you do here with the foundation, and also the work you've been doing in support of the chamber and our initiatives as well too. And so thank you for the interview, and thank you all for watching Our Story.